Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this lovely product market fit panel. My name is Jesse Baker. I'll be your moderator today. Yes, thank you for braving the cool weather and the grass. We really appreciate it. And we just hope to provide you a very valuable panel session with our guest speakers today. We also want to thank our sponsors, the Idaho Better Business Bureau and Zions Bank. So thank you. Without them, this would not be possible. First, we wanted to start with just to give you a little bit more context about who I am and why I'm presenting all of this to you. Like I said, my name is Jesse Baker. I am the VP of Marketing and Special Initiatives at Jewel Case, which we'll get into a little bit more about Jewel Case later on in the presentation. I am a brand strategist by trade, which means I'm always thinking about the consumer and how brands can fully resonate with their target consumer. I'm an investor. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I specifically crossed out failed because as we're going through Boise Entrepreneur Week, it's always important to remember that failure is just an opportunity to learn, right? You're not a failure. And you know, in the lifestyle of entrepreneurship and startups, I couldn't do it without my lovely family shown behind me, my wife Kim and my daughter Etta. My LinkedIn is below. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Happy to connect, network, answer any questions. Yeah, again, just thank you for being here. So we're talking about product market fit. And, you know, there's a lot of amorphous kind of definitions out there about what that is. And to me, it's when you craft, you know, a product or a service that perfectly fits the needs of a target consumer and their underserved needs. To provide a little bit more context about, you know, what that means and how you firm it up in your mind, I like to go back to this quote by Don Valentine at Sequoia Capital. I want a company that has such demand from the market that they can literally screw everything up and still succeed. So as I'm going through this, I'm going to provide, you know, some more examples, again, to provide more context and really be able to firm it up in your mind. And the example I came up with, so I'm from a little town in North Idaho called St. Mary's. And so I actually end up making the drive to North Idaho quite a bit. And to me, when I think about product market fit, I think of the Chevron in New Meadows. If anybody has made that drive before, the Chevron in New Meadows is just about 3 hours away. It's perfectly long enough for I want to get out of my car, stretch my legs. There's plenty of bathroom space where you don't have to wait for a stall. And there's even an A&W in case I have a craving for cheese curds. So to me, again, I have an unmet need and they have a value proposition that perfectly fits right there at the intersection of, you know, Highway 95. To go over our agenda, so we've kind of set this up in two portions. First is part of what I'm going through right now, which is a little bit of a lecture. I'm going to give a high-level overview of what the product market fit framework is, just so we're all operating on the same level of context and the same terminology. I'm also going to walk through my company, Jewel Case, as it aligns to this framework, and then we'll finally turn over to the reason that you all are actually here to talk to our fine panelists, you know, hear them speak. We will then reserve some time at the end for questions. What I will say is that you know, we're trying to make this an interactive panel as much as possible. So if you have questions during the session, please raise your hand. We'll try to answer them as we go. I'll also be monitoring the Hoeger app, so you can also submit questions on there as well. So first, you know, I'm just going to breeze through this. Again, you don't want to hear me talk all that much, but this is the product market fit pyramid, first proposed by Dan Olson in the Lean Product Playbook. I highly encourage you to buy this book, go crazy, and even get it on paperback, you know, not digital. But they, you know, Dan goes into a much you know, more detail about each of these layers of this pyramid. The first, you know, the bottom of this is your target customer. Who will be buying your product and service? But it's important to note that once you identify who it is, you have to go much, much deeper than that. You have to truly understand who your customer is on an intimate level. What motivates them? What causes them pain? And then as we're all trying to build successful businesses, a really key question that may sometimes be forgotten is that target customer big enough for you to actually thrive and grow your business? As we start to move up this pyramid, the next one is, what are their underserved needs? How does your product or service fulfill the target customer's need? And you might ask questions like, what are their pain points? What makes them unhappy? Where is friction within their customer journey, whatever that is? And then we start to make this jump from the market to the product or service that you are creating, and you get to your value proposition. How will your product meet your customers' needs better than alternatives? Sometimes people create completely new things. Other times, you just provide a service or product that has a few more benefits or reduces frictions, or sometimes it's as simple as just creating something that's cheaper. Each one of those examples have created billion-dollar businesses and shouldn't be discounted. Then we get to feature set. So what are the specific qualities that your product or service have that supports your value proposition? So the way that I like to think about this is, if your value proposition is the strategy, quote unquote, about how you serve your target customers' underserved needs, then feature set is more the tactics. So I think of Venmo. If their value proposition is to create frictionless transacting between consumers, then the feature set might actually be, the ability to request payment peer-to-peer, or to provide the QR code that you can easily scan, and again, just to reduce the friction along that consumer journey. And then the very tippy top of the pyramid is user experience. And this is not to be confused with digital user experience, right, which is just on one touch point. We're talking about the end-to-end user experience. And the way I define it is this: how can you intentionally, very big on intentionally, craft the customer's experience to remove barriers, reinforce the brand, and encourage mass adoption? So a good example of this happened just recently. A good friend of mine, unfortunately, she just lost her dog of 15 years named Izzy. Now, in kind of the grief and stress of this situation, she used Chewie.com for her pet food delivery, and she just forgot to have that food delivery stopped. So when she reached out to Chewie and asked for a refund, they said, absolutely, and since it's unopened, please just go to your nearest shelter and donate it. It's as simple as that. And Amy, my friend, thought that was the end of it. Well, a couple days later, a handwritten note with Izzy's name talking about the condolences, but also a bouquet of flowers showed up from Chewie.com. Now, those specific things cost the company money and did not lead to direct sales, but what it did is create a customer for life. So again, it's the touch points from the end-to-end customer experience that can really start to drive product market fit. So that's the framework in a nutshell. Again, I said I was just going to breeze through it, and now we're going to try to apply it to a real company, and that is the company I work for, Jewelcase. So Jewelcase is a company that provides portable power that often replaces portable generators. And when this company was first created back in 2017 by Alex Livingston and James Wagner, it's a local Boise, Garden City company, they identified two target customers. One of events like concerts, running events like 5Ks, or even events like Boise Entrepreneur Week. The other target customer was trade shows. In both cases, you need access to power. If you've gone on the trade show circuit a lot, like I have, you know that at each trade show, if you want power, you have to pay each and every time, and that cost adds up. And so at some point, right, it becomes more cost effective to buy a solution instead of buying directly from the venue. So if we look at these two target customers and their underserved needs, two things really stand out. They need a solution that's portable and scalable. And especially for trade shows where it's indoors, you can't just be running generators all the time because of the noise, because of the toxicity that burning fossil fuels creates. So the solution is this: an elegant, portable battery solution that is clean and quiet. And compared to generators, it really is a no-brainer, especially as we think about how many more restrictions are coming on. If you didn't realize, California banned small generators beginning in 2027, a couple months back. So there's a tide shifting where there's going to be a need for portable power that is not related to generators. And when they started to think about the feature set, they came to this. And as you can see here, the product, it's a battery, but it's stackable. And if we get into more, battery nerd language that I like to call it, is they made this very intentional choice to separate the power from the energy, separate the architecture. And most of the solutions, even a generator, combine those two into one package, which makes scaling your power, if you need more power, more energy, it makes it really challenging. And so with this platform, you can do both. You can almost have infinite combinations of power and energy. Right, power, and I had to learn this because I'm not a battery nerd, and I say that lovingly, I promise. Power is like the water coming through the hose. It's the force of that water coming through the hose, where energy is the bucket. Right? It's the bucket of water. So both of those are important to keep in mind. And so we get to the user experience. They intentionally crafted this product, this service, this feature set for the two customers, right? Trade shows and events. Well, 2020 happened and COVID happened. And you know what? There weren't trade shows anymore. There weren't events anymore. There weren't concerts anymore. And so, they needed to compete. But unfortunately, when you start to compete to other target customers, like the outdoorsmen, for instance, this is the competition. It's cheaper and it's not scalable. And it's also, just from a product design standpoint, more suited from a consumer audience as opposed to a business-to-business audience. So what do we do? What does Jewel Case do to kind of compete and survive in this time? And that was kind of our opportunity to take a step back. We've created a system almost unintentionally that has the ability to have higher power and can scale that power. There's this opportunity to have a large energy reservoir. Again, the bucket of water is big, and it's still mobile. And so what is the product? If we're in pursuit of product market fit, what is the target audience that we need to be going after? And we sort of stumbled into this, but it's very clear in afterwards. Food trucks. So right now, and going back to that original quote about screwing things up and still selling, we cannot keep product on the shelves because we are converting food trucks from generators to clean power solutions. Now, it's our hopes, we are not a food truck power company, right? That's fairly limiting, smaller market. But what it does is it provides such a great revenue source that can really fund other parts of our business where we don't have to seek debt financing. We can limit our amount of equity financing. And so we sort of stumbled into this product market fit, but it's going gangbusters. And it's our goal through 2023 to really own this market. We want to be known for food truck power. And you can go to foodtruckpower.com to prove it. And the real thesis of kind of this first part lecture is that while the framework is presented in a logical step process, what we saw at Jewel Case and many times in reality is it's a very iterative process. We identified an underserved need and then kind of backed into a target market. And what our panelists will kind of describe is that iteration happens all throughout the pyramid. So that's product market fit from almost an academic level. And now it's time to hear from our speaking panel. So I'll invite everybody up here and we will make this transition. Thank you. So first up, Russ Whitney, CEO of Idea Room. Please introduce yourself and your company and your target customer.
You bet. So this is Mike 3. Yeah, okay. All right. My name's Russ Whitney. I'm a longtime entrepreneur from the Boise area, and I'm involved in my third startup right now, co-founder and CEO, which is Idea Room. And Idea Room, we sell to companies that are just like the one that made this tent. It was kind of opportune. So you wondered why you're all out here in the cold. It's because I needed to be able to talk about our product. What we do is we do a software service for companies that sell structures like this. And you can just go out on one of these companies' websites and design your own building and purchase it online using our software. So you can see the picture behind me. That's a building that you could spin and rotate, drag windows around, change colors, change the roof, and then use your credit card and put a deposit down and you've got yourself a building. So that's that's what we do now. And it's kind of very similar to the food truck story about how we got there. Are we going to go into the product market fit part, or we'll wait? We'll just do intros. Okay, so we'll
wait.
stop right there.
Great. Thank you, Russ.
Yeah.
And next up is Cherie Hoeger.
Okay. Oh, good. Mine's on. Hey, thanks for coming out here. It's nice and chilly, so appreciate you all being here. So I'm Cherie Hoeger. I'm CEO and co-founder of Salt, and we are a women's period care company. So we deal with periods and also all leaks. We have hard goods, which we sell reusable menstrual cups and discs, and then also absorbent underwear for women.
Thank you.
So I'm George Seybold. I'm the CEO of Taloo. Taloo is a social commerce company. We've done a lot of work over the last few years with networking, peer groups, that type of work in order to be able to fund our application that we've been developing, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we'll just leave it with social commerce.
Hey, I'm Neiman. I'm CEO, founder of P2 Strategy Group, also Digital Paths. We do the people side of HR, so organizational consulting specializing in talent development, training, recruitment, and so forth.
All right, so Russ, back to you, since we paused. First question for the panel. How did you arrive at product market fit?
All right, so now I get to talk about it. All right, that's good. So, so my company, Idea Room, we started out by doing this 3D interactive technology, and we went to market in a completely different way than we do now, and we were not being successful. I like to say we were wandering in the dark because we had a great technology and an ineffective way to go to market. And what we ended up doing, and I don't think this is unusual for companies in Boise that are kind of lean startups, not raising that much capital, is we developed our product while doing consulting, essentially. And what we did was we said, we have the appropriate technology to do what's called visual product configurators. So anytime you're out buying a product that has not been built yet, it's not in inventory, and you want to specify, how the thing looks and then get a good price and then make the purchase. We did those as custom solutions, and we did it in the recreational vehicle space. We did it with barns, we did sheds, we did houses, residential houses. We did it with a couple of different residential home builders, one here in Boise. And what ended up happening, every one of those solutions was out on the internet for people to use, and we put our brand on it. And one particular industry segment found us, and that was the shed industry. And it's actually a pretty big industry. It's dominated by Amish manufacturers back in Pennsylvania, but you see around here Tough Shed and Stormore and so forth. But we had done a solution in this market, but we started getting calls from other companies, and they were asking us, "Boy, can you do something just like that?" And it was at that point in our company history we said, "Okay, let's just pivot. We'll make a product that is specifically tailored to that industry and do it really well and do it in a way that doesn't require customization, or at least not like software programming." And when we did that, our product just took off. And at this point, that was about 5 years ago, and we've replicated that same strategy in other market segments. And the result of getting a great product market fit with a good, vertical approach is that like 98% of our sales are inbound. People just call us. And it wasn't until this year that we even had anybody in our company with the title salesperson. Yet we had crossed over 3 million in revenue annually. So it was.
So follow-up question.
Yeah.
I described the food trucks for jewel case, right? We found a product market fit, and we hope that provides runway so we can build out other parts of our company, or how we envision it. What's that like, and what's that dynamic for Idea Room? Is this now your product, or is it building runway towards bigger, better things?
Well, we knew from the start that the shed industry segment was relatively small. It's actually a lot bigger than we thought it was when we first moved into it, but still, we knew it would have had limited runway, and I assume the same is true for food trucks. And so what we did was we said, okay, we'll just call this our product, Idea Room for Sheds, and then we will quickly move into neighboring segments that are progressively larger, with the thought that that we could have a very similar value proposition in each one. We could tailor it for the best product market fit for that industry, and we would grow progressively with bigger industries, but not tackle an industry that attracted a really large competitor. And so that's been our approach. We're in 3 segments, moving into a 4th at this point, and but it's still challenging. Each segment, even though the product is very similar, and from the outside eye, when you're looking at 2 neighboring segments, like one is sheds and one is carports, for example, the value proposition is different. And so you do go through this product market fit each time. And I'm sure the same would be true when you move beyond, food trucks.
Great. Cherie, how did you arrive at product market fit?
Oh, well, I was actually the customer for our company. So I was looking for something that was reusable as a solution for my family that lived in Venezuela. So my husband was born in Venezuela, and I come from Latin heritage too. My mom is Argentine. I was talking to his aunt in Venezuela, and she was describing how she couldn't get anything on store shelves because you apply dictatorship plus high inflation, and that just makes a bad recipe, right? And so they couldn't get anything. And I was, looking for something for emergency preparedness, and also, for a solution for my family there. I have 5 daughters. And so I immediately thought of my 5 daughters and just thought, what would I do if I couldn't access things like period care items or personal hygiene items? And that's when I was introduced to the menstrual cup for the first time. I have a prop somewhere. Most people haven't seen what a menstrual cup is.
Thank you for normalizing it.
Okay, there you go. So that's what it looks like. So I was introduced to this for the first time, and I thought, what is this? And where has this been all my life? I'm a woman now in my 40s, and I hadn't ever seen this. And when I discovered it, then I just realized how wonderful it was. It was a cleaner solution. It was safer. It was better for the environment, better for your body. It could, hold more than a tampon could. And it lasted 10 years. And I thought, I could wear this for 10 years and never have to visit the tampon aisle again. And I'm sorry, I'm TMI all the time. So, we do periods. So I'm just going to let it all out. But we determined, our product market fit was I couldn't find a cup that was made in the US, that was high quality, and that was something that was going to be good for beginners. And so that's when my husband and I decided to, get into the 3D CAD system and develop our own menstrual cup. And, our first success really in our first year, we were able to pitch to Target and launch into all Target stores nationwide with an exclusivity agreement. So for us, that was really kind of the kicker that said, yeah, we determined this product market fit. We wanted something that was going to be high end and beautiful, really good for the beginner, and it really stuck.
So your story, it's very specific, but not different than a lot of entrepreneur journeys where you started as the target customer and then build a business around it. Well, and I'm putting you on the spot, but what are the traps or what are the pitfalls of actually being the customer? And it's kind of the leap I'm making is, did you assume you knew what you needed to know?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can get into pitfall if you're too involved in an industry. We see this all the time, actually, when we hire. And that's if we hire from within a category, within an industry, sometimes it takes people, coming from the outside and looking in to be disruptive. So there's a lot of sustaining innovation out there, right? Which is a term that was coined by Clayton Christensen with the innovator's dilemma. And that sustaining innovation is making the product just a little bit better, right? So you may have, something that just has better branding or just, something better on the outside. And then there's also disruptive innovation. And to really be disruptive, oftentimes it takes looking, from the outside, looking into the category and saying, how can I disrupt this? Or how can I apply something from a different category and make it even better? Disruptive innovation is a little tougher because it's harder to adopt and it's usually a harder sell for consumers, but usually wins out in the end. So that's the innovator's dilemma, is the conundrum. Do you do something sustaining or disruptive?
Great. George, you want to tell us about Toulouse?
Yeah, so when I started up Toulouse, I had a little bit of a different story than these folks because they had a clear idea of where they were going, it sounds like, and it evolved along. what I knew is I wanted to create a company where the intersection of B2B SaaS and people were. And so when I did that, I didn't go out and seek a bunch of funding or try to find some big invention. I wanted to take an exploration, and I had the time to do it to be able to go out there and find what I wanted to build. So along the way, I decided if I wanted to have community be a part of it, I better figure out how to build a community. So I did that. I wanted to figure out how to tie people together, bind people together so that they'd actually want to engage each other. And then I wanted to build an application because I love tech. So I started building this application to create, and this is the sexiest thing you'll hear all day, great network group management software. Sounds vanilla? All right, I did it.
Sexier than my period underwear?
Not at all. It's not nearly as amazing. But I built that software and I figured that out, right? How the problems that are involved in managing a community like that. But the fact is that I really love B2B because I'm a sales guy at heart and I've been doing that for decades. And so I wanted to build something that was in a space called social commerce. And we're about to, as we've gone along this, I funded this with the grace of the people who decided to join me on the journey and be my customers. That's how we funded this endeavor. And it's been great because the feedback, I've been directly in the room, hearing what sucks, how to make better, and so on and so forth. And we've got to this point where now we're about ready to bring this online platform and commerce together in a way that has never been done before because there's a big white space around social commerce for B2B. There's a $1.3 trillion space. So I'm really excited about that. And you've heard a lot from founders that say we're just getting started. Really, I'm just getting started.
And Neiman, please tell us about P3 Strategy Group and a specific question. What came first, the chicken or the egg? No, that's just kidding. The customer, the need, or the value proposition?
So chicken or the egg? For us, I actually never planned on being an entrepreneur. I quit my last job at a major consulting firm, went out, cried a little bit in my car. 45 minutes later, one of my clients reached out. She's like, hey, Accenture reached out to us and said you're no longer working with them. So this is what you're going to do. She's like, you're going to start your own firm and we'll be your first client. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. Never going to happen. She bugged me once a week for 6 months, saying, hey, when are you going to start your own firm? 6 months of me looking for jobs, not finding anything that I really wanted. Got back to her. I was like, okay, let's do it. So client number one. And then minutes later, she's like, oh, I heard you're working with so-and-so. You're going to come work with us as well. We're like, okay, client number two. That went on. So first day of business, had 6 clients, started with 40 employees. So for us, it was the customer first.
Sounds like a pretty good thing. What challenges did you experience when trying to scale that and actually make it, you have to grow the business at some point. Was it just word of mouth? Did you do anything specific? What did you experience along the way?
Yeah, for us, we still are word of mouth. Everything we do is referral based. We don't have any sort of marketing presence. You go online, type us up, P3 Strategy Group, nothing's gonna pop out. We're word of mouth referral. We plan to keep our business that way. We don't have anyone in our company named with the title salesman, anyone with the title name marketing. It's just consultants and analysts is what you'll find there.
Great. So Cherie, a question for you because I know you've just introduced more formally a different line of products and you went into this, but how has your product market fit shifted over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we launched our period underwear product, absorbent underwear, in 2020. And it was interesting because we were really listening to the buyers who wanted to pick up our product, buyers from these high-end retailers. And it was a little bit different than where we had first launched, which was in Target stores, which is, an affordable kind of trendy retailer. But we were looking at these high-end retailers like Bloomingdale's and Macy's and Neiman Marcus and J. Crew. And they were saying, there's period underwear out there right now, and it's kind of an everyday style, everyday cuts. And so we want something that's differentiated. We want something that, is beautiful. And so we hired a French lingerie designer, and I brought props too. So I'm going to challenge your sexiness here. Businesses, sexiness. So these are some of our products. So it had this beautiful lace and mesh that was just European laces. And it really worked. It got picked up by J. Crew. It got picked up in Bloomingdale's in store, and then in Neiman Marcus and so forth. So you'd say, oh, this is a really great success when we launched this collection. However, go figure, women on their periods want to be more comfortable than they want to just, look beautiful and sexy. Although these are also good sellers, they didn't really hit the market so well. So when you talk about, how we pivoted, is that we realized, okay, we were listening to the buyers and not necessarily the customers. So since then, we launched our newest collection, which is a comfort collection. It's a super soft modal. It has higher absorbencies. And this is our best-selling collection, go figure, because it's something that the consumers want more. So you have to look at those pivots over time.
Great. Anybody else have anything to say about pivots and shifting?
Well, I just had a story. So the five of us met and talked about this session a few weeks ago, and as we were sharing with each other about our businesses, we discovered something that was very common between all of us, and that is that there essentially are multiple stakeholders that you're achieving product market fit with. So Cherie's talking about, the buyers in these large like department stores, and then also the consumers. We have the same thing because we're selling to building manufacturers, but our solution is used by consumers. And so, you have to be truly successful, you need to have all your stakeholders covered. And, we talked about different, particularly in your business, George, that you had the same issue.
Yeah, and just to add that for clarity there, when we're talking to, we've got small businesses that are in the room, we've got larger businesses that are in the room, but enterprise really cares about having a voice with the customers or the members that we have in the room. So whether that's online or offline, the fact is that they want a part of that conversation and to be included. So I didn't foresee that whatsoever as we go along.
For us, so we're selling into, not selling into, as I said, we don't have any salespeople, but when people are coming to us, we're having like the heads of HR, the heads of finance reaching out to us. And at the end of the day, they're not our customer. Our customer is an employee base. So we're doing solutions and strategies that affect the employee, and actually not, the chief of HR or the chief, financial officer. So.
Yeah, so important. Oh,
Can I
go ahead.
add one thing here?
Yeah.
I don't want to make, when you start out on your entrepreneurial journey, you'll be like, oh boy, I got to spend some money and I got to make all the right choices, and you won't. You'll make a lot of the wrong choices, but you can do a lot of things really, really fast, really inexpensively if you take an intelligent approach to this. Don't worry about when you're doing product market fit and you're thinking about that. Don't worry about making all the right choices. Move fast. Think like the zombies are chasing you. Move fast and run. And you'll outrun the other folks, because the fact of the matter is that a lot of people will get discouraged and they'll stop running. So you probably have a pretty good chance of doing it as an intelligent human if you keep running, if you follow me. So don't worry about getting it right off the bat.
As Jesse said earlier, he's a failed entrepreneur. Don't be afraid to fail.
I try to make it look good. So George, as the old maxim goes, what gets measured gets managed. So how do you measure product market fit?
Great question. I don't know. No. So there's a lot of things that I do for measuring. A lot of it is voice of the customer, constantly checking in and seeing if they are getting what they need, and taking that feedback. Just because they say no doesn't mean it's bad feedback, because you got to ask them why. So that's offline, and so I'm really engaged in that way. But online, boy, do I look at engagement. I look at how did they take the pathway. So analytics are really important to me. Understanding what pathway somebody took through a piece of software, and did they end up where I thought. What are they using? So in my world of social commerce, I can see where people are doing things in the digital space that are a lot of effort. And I go, if I make this less effort over here, will they adopt it readily and start doing it? And so that's very telling. I see where the friction is and what's out there, and I see if I can pull them over and try something new. I don't know if that's a great answer, but
It's wonderful. Anybody else? How do you measure? Yeah, how do you measure product market fit?
So I read a book that it was not quite as popular as The Innovator's Dilemma, but it was darn close. And it was, I don't know, it's probably at least 15 years old. And it's called 4 Steps to the Epiphany. And if you're at a stage as an entrepreneur where you're looking to get product market fit, I highly recommend reading this book. I read it about a year ago, and I was just kicking myself for not finding this thing before I started Idea Room. And what they propose in there in terms of how do you measure progress during this stage is that it is really learning based. They have a 4-step process or foundation that they suggest, and at each stage, in order to move on to the next stage, you have to answer a series of questions. And so your progress is not measured because your tendency, at least mine was, to measure based on revenue. And you communicate to your investors, you're going to make this much revenue. And yet, if you start chasing revenue too quickly and you haven't really achieved product market fit, then every dollar that you get is more painful than if you had product market fit. But if you measure via learning, then you know better when to push the gas pedal and when to essentially fund the go-to-market side of the business. And so anyway, if you haven't read it, take a look at it. It's a great tool.
Can I ask one more thing? I'm sorry. I want to answer the question well. So this is a little signal, you guys. Okay, so we built these digital business cards. It was an easy snap-on NFC card to our profiles that we had external already. I just want to give you an example because you'll see this. So this wonderful influencer over in France, she found one of these in an event in Berlin. Now you see smart business cards all over the place. They're nothing. It's newer, but it's not novel. It's not crazy. So this influencer in France got a hold of this thing, and 247,000 people, take a second for that thought, pre-registered for us to be able to get them a card in Europe. We didn't take European currencies whatsoever. Okay, so this was a problem, a gap in this. I had no idea that the market even existed over there. It was a signal to us. Now I have this database of people. It costs so little. These are like 10 cents to produce. So little to produce in the platform we want. But I could tell by signals, that was a big signal, that people wanted it. Now it was just a matter of machining it to get the thing out there. I just wanted to give an example to better answer for you.
So just from that up, so what's the KPI? Just engagement of that specific tactic?
In this specific asset. So what is the demand in the marketplace? I made it really frictionless for them to be able to tap the card and exchange information. And this one influencer did that. And then she says, can I be a reseller? Can I be an influencer for this? I just want to slice the revenue. Those are things the customer will come to you and say what I want if you listen to them, just like they did with your products. It's just a matter of being open to saying, I can do a 1-degree tip here and try and make this work.
Great. Neiman, please.
For us, our answer is pretty simple. It's retention. How happy are our clients? Are they coming back to us year after year? You can ask me about revenue. I actually have absolutely no clue what our revenue numbers look like. But you asked us about our retention numbers. They go very, very in depth. So yeah, for us, it's retention.
That's kind of going to be my follow-up question is, well, isn't it always just revenue? But what are the times that when looking at revenue, again, might be a false signal in how you're actually doing within the marketplace?
So I had lunch with a friend of mine who's also a CEO of a software as a service company here in Boise. I won't mention his name here, but he's out raising capital right now, like many of us entrepreneurs are spending our time doing. And but when I asked him a lot of questions about his business, he was saying, revenue's doing pretty well. But when I asked him more details about how his business was structured, what I learned was that 60% of his expenses were sales and marketing. And if you know anything about software businesses, you'll know that that's an extraordinarily high number. That you would expect sales and marketing to be maybe 30% of your expenses. And so without digging any deeper than that, it seems intuitive to me that he might not have that product market fit. And, because what he's doing is he's just by sheer manpower is he's selling this thing and getting more revenue.
So we'll start with you. How often do you kind of reevaluate product market fit, and how does that really inform new products and services?
This is something that we do ongoing all the time, actually. We conduct a lot of customer surveys. We have a really direct line into just our CX, so our customers, through really we have a Slack channel where we just monitor trends and what they're saying and so forth. We're a very word of mouth type of company because people don't make the switch to reusable period care without hearing from somebody else who's made the switch. And so we're very deliberate about that. We're very deliberate about our customer service, about delighting them. So the example that you shared earlier, about receiving flowers, from Cherie, that's actually something that we do a lot. Like, for some reason, dogs really like our menstrual cups. I don't know what it is about the silicone, but they tend to grab it quite a bit. And so we actually have like this routine, like dog bone that we send out with replacement cups and so forth. I'm making sure I get to your question though. Remind me.
How do you evaluate or reevaluate product market fit? And then how does that inform new products and services?
Yeah, how we reevaluate. I'm going to share one example, and that's when we developed our gusset technology for our period underwear. We wanted something that was really, really thin and super dry. We wanted it to feel like regular underwear, not like you're wearing a diaper, right? And there's a lot of period underwear companies out there that had bulky, underwear. And what we didn't realize when we developed ours, we went for the disruptive route, and we took 3.5 years working with professors at NC State and those who specialize in forensics, which is, blood and fabrics. And we developed this underwear that was really, really thin, but people didn't actually believe that it works. So it can hold up to 2 or 3 pads, and it's super thin, it's as thin as a nickel, but they didn't believe it worked. And so we have kind of reevaluated in the sense that we've actually added an extra layer and done a higher absorbency. People feel like they trust it more with these higher absorbencies. We found that those actually sell better than kind of our regular absorbency that's so super thin. So it's just kind of interesting how, you have to look at what the consumers are saying, what they're saying under your reviews, and, really evaluating that and making sure that you meet them where they are.
I want to actually ask you a question. How did you get that customer feedback that they didn't trust your product?
Amazon reviews.
Okay.
We're just constantly looking at, what are customers saying in real time. And we actually, because we're kind of a very life-changing company, and I don't say that to be braggy, it is literally the number one thing that we hear every single week from our consumers is they'll get our product and they'll say, this is life-changing. Because for a woman who has, period every single month, and it takes out a week out of their months, it really is life-changing to have something that's so much better, that's so much more comfortable, that works better, that's more sustainable. And so we're always looking, and we get a lot of influx of customers talking to us.
So I love that answer. I just got to say, because if you're an enterprise, your go-to is let's have a focus group and have a conversation with people in a room. So I love that you chose that approach. That's good.
So Neiman, you're slightly different than the rest of the group, and you have a professional services company, a consultancy. So how do you think about innovation and like new products for what you do?
For us, innovation in new product comes from client demand. Great example would be COVID. So COVID for us was amazing. It was a giant change in the way we do business. Clients were reaching out to us like, hey, we have this giant problem. People are no longer working from the office. How do we manage people? It comes directly from the client mouth for us. So.
And was that something, so when you have these innovative moments or these innovative market opportunities, is that something that you augment the organization to service, or do you find new people to bring that to life?
It's sort of a panic for us. It's okay. It's, hey, there's this need. Does anyone have the expertise in it? No, so we're basically figuring it out as the client goes, or as the need comes, which is somewhat stressful, but we get it done. So
great. Well, we'll use this. We have about 15 minutes left, and so I'm going to spend 10 minutes and ask the audience for any questions that you might have. I know I have a few on the app that I'll pull up, but if anybody has a question, we'd love to engage you right now. Anybody? I know a few of you. I will call on you. All right, first question. What tips do you have with early initial market research? Have you had an idea show research results that wildly differed from reality or expectations, for better or for worse? So I'll handle the first part of that, right? Brand strategist by trade. Sometimes you have to be really, really uncomfortable. For most people, including me, it's the power of the IDI or the in-depth interview or consumer intercepts. I used to work a lot with mass retail and consumer goods, and interacting with shoppers on the shelf is really valuable. What else is in their cart? What are they buying? Who are they with? who's actually buying the product? Is it, I did a lot of work with General Mills. Is it the parent actually buying the product, or is it, children creating demand and the parent putting it in the cart? So just putting yourself in the field for, again, that's kind of specific to consumer packaged goods. But that's a good way to start. Yeah.
One thing that we did early on is that we created a focus group on Facebook with about 1,000 people. And I can't remember the guy on YouTube who says, to start a movement, you need about 1,000 people to go for it. And what we did is we asked them all sorts of questions about our brand because we wanted something that would really resonate, with the consumer and our target market as a brand. So we asked them, hey, do you like this copy better than this copy? Do you like these colors better than this one? Which kind of packaging do you like? So we really tested that A/B testing. We couldn't do that with our cup because, we had to literally etch that in steel to create this silicone mold. And I think we dropped $25,000 per mold to do for when we first started, which, as an entrepreneur, comes right out of your 401k, right? So we couldn't do that, but what you could ask them is all these branding questions. So that was one way that we kind of conducted some early research, is just trying to maneuver our brand to be exactly what they wanted.
George, your drive for everyone is to move fast. So do you have any specific examples of how you've gone down a path, did some research, backstep, and then reevaluated how you went to market?
I won't say I'm that smart, but I'll tell you how I do it. So I'm probably not as systemic or academic in the approach. I had a friend of mine told me one time, he says, if a water faucet, if you can turn it on and it flows out money, then turn it on wider. Okay, so I thought that was kind of smart. And so over the last few weeks, about maybe 6 weeks or so, I've been getting a number of people, for some reason, coming to me and saying, George, do you have some software development resources that we can use? We need to maintain a product or whatever. So on Sunday night this week, I turned on a quick web page called Toulouse Digital, and my development resources that I have sitting idle right now, because they're sitting idle for a reason, but I said, well, gosh, I'm going to turn this faucet on. So that created in the last, and so this is not answering your question totally, but I want you to understand, in what is this, Tuesday, we have 15,000 in contract commits and receiving checks just on development resources for maintaining applications, because I tipped that up and sent it out emails to those folks who had asked me. So the thing is that when you have a faucet, turn it on, see what flows, and then use that money to come back to your core. A lot of people say don't distract your business. Quite honestly, I think it's a lot of BS until you could do a lot. A lot of people think you have to be a singular focus, and if you're getting venture money and you're going after that, they want you to be singular focused. But the fact of the matter is I'm going to receive the money. I'm not going to dilute, and I'm not going to go out and have to sell more of the primary product, and this is easy to deliver on in my world, the way it's set up. So I think that's iterative in the way I think, and hopefully that helped.
The second part of this question is, have you ever had an idea show research results that wildly differed from reality or expectations, for better or for worse? I'm going to relate that back to Jewel Case. So as I explained, we knew we had some specific things about the product family that would lend itself to work really well for food trucks. Well, when we first went to market with it, we went directly to the food truck owners themselves. And we, in essence, hit a brick wall. Like, going outbound to food truck owners was very frustrating, partially because they already have power. And when they need power, their generator just died and they need it right now. But the typical food truck power purchase for us is a $17,000 purchase. And it takes multiple rounds of consultation to make sure that it can work within a food truck setting. So it's a very considered purchase, long lead time, but their generator just broke and they've got a date in 2 days where they're doing, this, that, or the other. So what we found is we're much more successful when we sell into builders. So going back to that conversation about end user versus buyers, we're able to compete much better if we're able to sell in early to the builders. So when a food truck has time, they're considering all their options to build out their proper food truck, they can actually give it a full consideration. They don't feel that time pressure. So I would actually think that is a case where we didn't do the research, but should have. But now that we've kind of figured out that formula of servicing more and going outbound to builders, informing them. But at the same time, people reach out for food trucks. We currently have a 45-day lead time on delivering food truck power. So we're opportunistic there, but outbound when it comes to the builders themselves.
Be opportunistic is the sense, whichever space you're in. I mean,
Absolutely.
and have you guys worked? Sorry to derail, but have you guys worked at all to say what is adjacent to the food truck that they could provide power to, or that you could provide a solution to that's already there? And so be opportunistic in helping them drive through revenue that makes your product more affordable is a way I think too.
Mhm. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the verticals, right? That there's an underserved need, and now it's defining the target markets. We're in this constant process, iterative process, right, of defining the target market, and then it becomes a practicality of, okay, how do we resource that? How do we devote manpower? How do we devote resources to actually go after that target market? Not everything can be word of mouth. Sometimes it can. So now we're just in the process of prioritizing and resourcing.
Yeah, I was going to talk about kind of an epiphany that we went through when we were working in the shed market, and it was related to this sub-segment of that market that is predominantly Amish and Mennonite. And there were a number of different things that were just completely like non-intuitive to us. And there's really two parts of the foundation of your product. One is what does your product do? What is it? And then the other is the value proposition. How do you describe it? And you have to describe it in such a way that's compelling to the people that you're selling to. And to us, we thought our product would help people get more sales and grow their business faster. That was compelling to us. And so that's the way we described it to our customers. But what we discovered was that there was a whole category of people in our target industry where that was not compelling at all. And the Amish were one of them. In the Amish community, running a large business is considered prideful. And so they keep the business smaller than a certain size. And so to them, what they wanted was easier sales. They wanted sales to just come in, but they didn't want to have to deal with that side of the business. All they wanted to do was focus on the building of the structures that they were going to sell. And that the only way for us to figure that out was just to have a lot of conversations in the industry and with the people, and just go in with a attitude of curiosity. Because if somebody had told me there's a segment of this industry that doesn't even use technology, they're not even on the internet, they don't have websites, I would have said, well, that's not a good fit for us, and I would have just dismissed it. But in reality, it is a good fit. They just can't handle it directly. They hire somebody to do their internet business, and they just take the orders. And so we had to just add a couple of little features, like when we capture customer information on the internet, to get it to the Amish people, we have to fax it to them. And they all have fax. They don't have computers, and they'll respond by fax. And that's pretty much all we had to do. And then, to demonstrate it to the Amish, most of them cannot use the computer directly. So a sales demonstration, we're here in Boise, they're in Pennsylvania, we have somebody come into their office to run the computer, and then they can watch it, right? And all of those things we just learned by just asking a lot of questions, and it's ended up being a very important part of our business.
Great. So the last question from the audience, what verticals, this is a very specific one. So what verticals have you seen with products that gain traction as a freemium but don't convert to paid customers versus ones that do? Any thoughts there?
So I read that question online before we came here, and so I was pondering it for a bit. And it's not intuitive to me at all that that vertical would be related to the success of a freemium model. That freemium to me is, to be successful with freemium, you have to have two successful value propositions. You have to have a value proposition for the free product, and then an additional value proposition for the paid portion of the product. And so you stair step your way into it, and you have to kind of fence. I don't know whether fencing is a common term, but for everybody, but fencing is where you have a particular feature in a version of your product that compels people to move to that product. So they call that a fence feature. So you'd want to have a fence feature for the freemium, and you want another fence feature for the paid version. It's powerful but tricky. But I don't know. Did any of you guys, can you think of a vertical where that wouldn't work? It doesn't seem intuitive to me that a vertical would determine the success of freemium.
Well, the only thing I can think of, and it's not directly answering the question, is just the music space and Spotify, right? They've successfully used a freemium model to upsell people into premium. Counter to that, to me, and this is me ideating last night, is Napster's still around, and they pay 4.3x what Spotify does to artists themselves. So at some point, Napster decided, made the choice that we're going to fairly compensate or better compensate artists, but Spotify, tagged their whole value proposition more to content, and it has become the industry leader with over 50% market share. And so, right, the underserved need was content, not more an altruistic, value. So it's really understanding, the customer there is what I thought of.
I was going to add to that a little bit. We don't have a freemium vertical, but we do a lot in terms of education, menstrual education, reproductive health education. So people will come to our platforms for that reason. And then in a sense, because our cups, so these are our discs also and other hard good products, but they have like a $29 price point, which is, pretty cheap when you think about the cost savings of having to buy lots of, tampons over their 40-year reproductive lifespan, or, buying this and you never have to go again. So this does not make for good repeat purchase, right? These last 10 years, that's not a good business model for us. And so we have to be, really good to be able to upsell them to our underwear product, which can act as a backup to a cup or tampons. It can, work for all leaks. So postmenopausal, women sometimes suffer with bladder leaks, or, it can just hold anything. And, underwear is something that you can wear every day. And so we feel like, we use kind of this vertical as an introductory point to be able to get them to purchase, a higher premium product.
Great. Quickly.
So the question is basically, is there a premium to premium? Is there a space? Well, it will not work.
Yeah.
I tried offering networking groups for free, and what I found is that people did not value them. So when I looked at customary and ordinary, when you said, hey, we charge for this, we deliver value for this, and that was what the market had done offline. When I tried to offer that for free, it did not work. It did not work. So I got a lot of people who didn't say, I have value, I'm not exchanging value for this, so I do not show up. So it does happen.
Great. All right, we're coming to the tail end of the session, and so please just, and I'll start with you, Neiman. When you think about product market fit in the panel we've all just sat through, what's your one takeaway or the one thing that you would impart on the audience about product market fit?
One takeaway, I would say, don't be afraid to go out there and take chances. You never know what your clients will be looking for. You never know what your customers will be looking for. Just go out there and just give it your all.
Do you have an example of taking a chance?
Taking a chance. Me starting my business every day. So every day I wake up, take a chance. Every day I ask the question, why am I doing this? But at the end of it, it's making our clients happy.
Great. George?
Yeah. Be very, very passionate about what you do, but be flexible in how you do it over time, because you'll make yourself believe things that are not true.
Again, similar vein, don't over prepare, just jump in. People ask me all the time, especially young entrepreneurs, did you get your MBA? Did you write a big business plan before you jumped in? I said, no, I'm an English major. I don't know that much about business, but I saw an underserved need, and I just said, this is important in the world, and that's something that we can do. And I, haven't talked about our impact program at all, but we've donated over 40,000 of our products in 35 countries to women and girls in need. And so we also have that philanthropic tie, and it's just something that you're really passionate about. So just jump in.
So I think of knowledge. You're out trying to acquire knowledge, and knowledge is in three categories. There are things that you know. There are things that you know that you don't know. And then there are things that you don't know that you don't know. Okay, so those are the three categories. And usually when you run into something, when you're talking to somebody and it's in that third category, you don't know that you don't know it, it's going to sound strange to you and it doesn't make sense. And you need to be alert to those things, because learning is the key to developing a successful business. And so you know, when you encounter those things, just ask lots of questions. Lead with curiosity.
Great. Everyone, please give us a round of applause to the product market fit panel. Thank you.